turned stateside, and at least 22 people are known to have been shot dead and around 60 injured in the US city of Lewiston in Maine. The shooter opened fire at a bowling alley and a bar with an AR-15 style rifle last night, and the suspect has been named as 40-year-old Robert Card, who police are still searching for while the city is under lockdown. Card is a US Army Reserve firearms instructor who was sectioned this summer for 2 weeks with mental health issues. Well, joining me to talk about this case now is New York Post columnist Adam Coleman. Good afternoon to you, Adam.
Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. Wish it was under nicer circumstances. I have to say, when I wake up in the morning to another shooting in America, the thing is, I do find myself going, oh, how many dead? Is it a big story or not? Because it's just day in, day out with mass shootings in America. This, though, is one of the biggest mass shootings for a long time, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, mass shootings have become more and more commonplace. But I also think that mental health issues have become more and more commonplace. I think when we lock down people, when we over-medicate people who are suffering from issues, we know that this guy was talking about voices in his head. Who knows how long that's been happening? Who knows the cause of it? Yeah. I think we have a much deeper problem. But unfortunately, what's going to happen today is that either side will find some sort of political motive, either to make sure everybody has their guns or to get rid of guns. Yeah. They'll banter back and forth. DC will make a show out of this, out of the victims who died, and it will go back to normal.
Yeah, here we go again.
And no solution will ever happen.
And it exactly. Is utterly bewildering and perplexing, I think, for pretty much every other country, Western country around the world that has dealt with this issue after the Dunblane massacre here in the UK so many years ago. Lots of weapons were taken out of people's homes, off the streets. Again, Australia. The number of massacres in America is so shocking. I thought the most shocking thing about this, not other than the horrific news that 22 people believed to have died, at least some 60 injured, and who knows if we may see further deaths. But this is the deadliest attack in the US so far this year out of, and this is extraordinary, 565 mass shootings. I think is it 4 or more people who were killed at the same time is considered a mass shooting. This is an epidemic.
Yeah, and even down to the definition of what is a mass shooting is debated. Some say 4, some say 3, some say, was it 3 or more killed? Some say 4 or more shot. I mean, so the definition, we can talk about that. But at the end of the day, a lot of people are injured because of shootings. But I would like to put something in context. The United States is a large country. The United States is a large country that has a lot of guns. We have a lot of people. We have over 330 million people that we know of. And so, unfortunately, there are going to be bad circumstances that happen like this. It's not something that I want to happen, of course not. But it's the odds of something bad happening when you have this many people with guns. Yep. And some mentally unstable person is going to get one and use it against some other person. That this type of thing is going to happen. It's an unfortunate circumstance, but that's the reality of the situation.
And we know in a lot of the cases, these guns are legally held. People are able to get access. This man, who is still on the loose, still unidentified. Now, bearing in mind, this first burst into the bowling alley at 7:15 p.m. local time. That's so just gone midnight UK time. He's still on the run, we understand. But he's an Army reservist. He was a firearms instructor for 20 years. He knew exactly what he was doing. This is the really terrifying thing, a very highly trained professional having access to these deadly weapons, knowing how to kill horrifically efficiently. But the fact that if he had been sectioned, that he had mental health problems, the fact that there was no attempt it would appear, to take his guns away from him. And you mentioned the mental health issue at the very beginning. This has come up again and again and again, hasn't it? It's often the teenagers who shoot up schools. They've been, children who've been identified as having problems for many, many years. People, by definition, who want to go and shoot up something like this, I think we'd all say have some sort of mental health issue, whatever the cause they think they're trying to pursue with it. Is there any hope that the American politicians are actually taking on board this issue in terms of American healthcare for the mentally ill?
In my opinion, no. Everybody wants to look at the shiny object. The shiny object is guns. Yeah. So either you're on one side who wants to get rid of the guns because the guns must be the problem, or you're on the other side who wants to make sure that everybody has access to a gun. The reality is there's rarely any solutions, just trade-offs.
Yeah.
And so what's the trade-off to get rid of guns? What's the trade-off to making sure that as many people have guns?
Yeah, but surely the argument
should
should be as few people have guns who are more likely to be a risk. We're never going to take guns away from Americans. You know, the constitutional issues, there's so many other issues there. And also you've got so many guns held illegally as well. People are going to feel... I lived in America as a kid. My parents said, you've got to tell everyone we've got a gun because people need to... We've got a gun in the house. That's just, you know, where we were living. That was considered what was necessary. It was nothing we would have ever considered doing in our home. But we also need to tackle the healthcare issue. These things aren't mutually exclusive.
Yeah, I mean, they are, but what's going to happen is that people are going to combine it, or even more so, what's been happening for, I would say, a decade, is that they overshadow it.
Yeah.
You know, even the political right, they mention mental health issues, but they do nothing about it. And it's really just a deflection. I think the mass shooter situation when it comes to kids in school really comes down to family dysfunction. Nearly all those kids come from parents who are divorced, come from single parent homes. That is a root cause for this type of problem. You can't fix that with policy. You can fix that with culture. So these are really difficult issues to fix. But what's going to happen is politicians can't fix cultural issues. Politicians can write policies that ultimately hurt people at the end because they can't give you more freedom. They can just restrict it. So, I mean, at the end of the day, what's the trade-off? That's what, you know, it's all going to come down to.
Really interesting to talk to you. Thank you so much for joining us. That's Adam Coleman. He's a columnist on the New York Post.